Welcome to yet another episode of Clearing the Haze, Making the Invisible Visible, a podcast that discusses topics that are usually invisible or just hazy. I'm your host, Shachi Irde. Please note, this podcast was recorded during the lockdown in the country with limited resources. Therefore, the sound quality at times may not be at its best. We apologize for the same. The messages and stories, however, are clear of the haze and enables inclusion for all. Our segment today is called The Bitter Pill. In this episode, we will discuss on the primary healthcare challenges for women from vulnerable sections of the society. As you know, good health is first essential for survival and then for quality of life. Improvement in health status for the people has often been regarded as an index of social development. Reports also state that the health of a country's female population has profound implications on the health and education of children, the economic well-being of households, as well as good health for women themselves. Our guests today for this discussion are Monalisa Padhee, Head of Women's Wellness at Barefoot College International, and Shruthi Iyer, CEO, Foundation of Mother and Child Health. Welcome to this show, and let's clear the haze by helping our listeners understand a little more clearly on how they can support women's health and nutrition. Let me start by asking Monalisa and Shruthi to share a bit about themselves first, and then a bit about the work that their organizations are involved in.
Thank you, Sachi. So I'm very humbled to be able to share about myself and my organization today. I'm basically from Odisha, but I have been working with Barefoot College International for the last 5 years, which is based out of Harmada, Rajasthan. But Barefoot College International has presence in 17 states in India through its various programs, and I currently lead the Women Health Initiative, where I work and learn with a group of grassroots leaders, and we co-design and implement various health-related intervention in the community with a very strong focus on women health programs. And these programs range from awareness and services on sexual and reproductive health. Our nutritional program works around practical approaches to good nutrition in these low-resource communities, as well as providing product, where one of the product is a traditional product by the community. And also we are entering into the space of health entrepreneurship as well to ensure sustainability of our various programs.
So many things your organization is doing, Monalisa. How did you get interested in these areas?
So I come with a very academic background, but while I was doing academic, I felt that I was very far away from grassroots realities, and I think that was the calling when I decided that I'll go and learn from the communities. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this is where I think I could learn and contribute, and I got interested. And as and when it's basically listening to the ground needs and work mm-hmm. accordingly with the ground, and I think I followed that approach, and that has worked for me so far.
So nice, Monalisa. You followed your passion of understanding what is happening at the grassroots levels, where you're feeling so fulfilled now with the work that you're doing. That's awesome. Shruthi, what about your journey?
Thanks so much, Sashi, for having me here on this podcast. I'm basically from Bangalore. I'm an engineer by qualification. I worked with Infosys for a couple of years. I did the Teach for India fellowship. Worked in the education sector for about 7 years after that. And for the last 2 years, I have been in the health space. It's been a fascinating journey for me to move from the corporate space into the development sector, and within the development sector to look at various nuances. And currently, I lead Foundation for Mother and Child Health, FMCH. We're an organization based out of Mumbai. We work with the urban slums. We work on maternal and child health, specifically in the first 1,000 days of the child's life, which is from the time the person is pregnant to the time the child is about 2. The 1,000 days is like a very important concept because there are only 2 phases in the human development when growth mm-hmm. happens very rapidly. One is in the 1,000 days, and the second is in the adolescence.
Oh, wow.
So if we are able to make sure that children in the first 1,000 days are healthy, they have good physical growth, emotional growth, and intellectual growth, they will perform well in school. They will become productive, full versions of themselves as adults. So that's our aim, to make sure that we have healthy mothers and happy families in the urban communities.
Wow, Shruthi, an engineer and turned into a health professional. I mean, look at the way you have traversed your journey. Amazing. And I think maybe we crossed our paths when we were at Infosys. I'm also an ex-Infosian and I'm a Bangalorean. Well, you're a Bangalorean at heart now. So nice. How did you get interested in the first 1,000 days of a child? It's such an interesting thing that you said. First 1,000 days and then the adolescence. A lot of focus is there on the adolescence and the growth at that time. But the first 1,000 days, I typically thought it was first 90 days.
Right. So the first 1,000 days actually is a very important in a child's life. And it's actually surprising that we don't talk enough about it. It also cannot be isolated as a child because the first 1,000 days starts from when the person is pregnant, which means it's also the mother's health. And with the mother's health, there are many nuances that come into this, right? Because when the person is pregnant, it means she needs enough support from the family. She needs to have nutritious food. She needs to take care. She needs to make sure she's got access to antenatal checkup. She's got support from the community. And all of that ensures that her baby is healthy and she is healthy. Post that, she needs to start, breastfeeding the child. The child is completely dependent on the mother. And irrespective of that, I think women's health as such is not given the topmost priority in our country. Of course, it's improving, but I think just lack of access, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness is still a big issue. And that's essentially what we want to work on, right? How do we make sure that there is contextual, actionable, and timely information for every mother in India, right? Irrespective of where she's from, an urban slum, a rural community, or wherever else that she belongs to.
Shruti, what you said brings me to pick the 2 points that you spoke about. One is creating awareness, and second is focus. There is so much that one needs to do in a country like ours, where maternal health is not the top priority for many. Monalisa, what has been your experience? I mean, you're working really at the grassroots level.
I think Shruti has brought forward a very important point that women health is not prioritized, even if it's improving in the past 5 years. I would just bring that the 1,000 days are very, very critical. But what we are trying to do is that we are also looking at a very intersectional approach, in the sense that there are gender norms which is preventing women to take care of themselves. The families are not supporting. So, how we can work in the community to talk about these issues. So that's one point. We are also trying to adopt a very life cycle approach. So from adolescence to periconception, which is before pregnancy, is when, if the mother enters into pregnancy with very poor health, what we call as an intergenerational cycle of poor health continues. So instead of looking at just 1,000 days, in some points, we are trying to have a very life cycle approach so that we intervene at very critical stages: adolescence, preconception, pregnancy, and then child health. And through that, our very strong focus has been our awareness program. Very contextual, hyper-local, very actionable, which works with these low-resource communities. So, for example, we cannot go in the communities and say that, you should have a diet which has rainbow colors. You can say that you have a Tiranga plate. It's very easy for them. Tiranga ka color,
Yeah.
Your plate should have these 3 colors. It makes it very easier for them to adopt. So our approach has been that very contextual, what works for them, and again, listening to them and understanding the context, and make curriculum very inclusive. So one of our priority has been to make this curriculum which transcend the barrier of literacy. So anyone is able to learn all this and able to go back in the community and motivate other women to follow that. So our approach has been enabling community health leaders with tools and techniques. Yeah.
So, very interesting point you brought. First is make it relatable. Instead of calling it a rainbow, use the colors of our Indian flag, which then helps them relate to what different colors you're talking about. Such an easy and simple way to make that understandable. But along with that, do you also have to kind of understand what kind of superstitions are being followed, and how do you break those myths? Those are even more difficult, right? Creating awareness is still much acceptable. They can come and listen to you, but how do you break those old superstitions? What has been your experience both? I want to understand at the grassroots level, in the rural and in the urban areas. So take it on.
I think, yeah, very aptly pointed out. These are very hard to do, and it takes a lot of time. So there are different myths on maternal, but we also work on menstrual health, and how taboo and stigmatized topic that is. First is definitely awareness and constant dialogue with the community to understand where is this myth coming from. What are the actual faith which brings this myth into place. So actually identifying them and then approaching it in a very culturally appropriate way, because then we cannot go and say that this is wrong, because then the community is not going to accept it. But to have constant dialogue with them to understand and then give them option that, have you thought about this, that the whole idea of women being dirty during menstruation comes from the fact that the blood is dirty. Okay, so if we explain to them what is the blood, how it is a very important component when a mother is pregnant, have that sense कि, oh, ये तो वही खून है जो बच्चे को पोषण देता है, it gives nutrition to the baby. That sense of understanding, we have seen remarkable change when we try to explain to them in very simple. And also the other thing is bring community leaders, influential leaders to speak about these issues. We cannot go and speak about it, so our approach has been they speak about these issues in the communities. Then it is very slow, it takes time, it is not overnight, but it is well accepted.
The influencers really play so much of a role, right? How has been your experience, Shruthi?
I think this is a hard question, Sachi. I mean, behavior change takes time, and as Monalisa said, I think getting influencers, making sure that you're talking about it in a language that people understand is very important. I also feel that, at least in maternal and child health, what we have seen is all parents want their children to be healthy, irrespective of where they come from, right? And just being able to show data on your children being healthy versus not being healthy makes a huge difference. For example, when we do the height, weight of the child, and we tell the parents that, look at this. This is a standard WHO graph, and this is where your child lies versus this is where the child should be. Even if the parents are illiterate, it's not hard to understand, and they get it, right? So I think just treating them also as equals and using and everyone wants their children to do well. Everyone wants families to be happy. So that makes a huge difference. In terms of how do you break myths and taboos, I think that's the hard one. I mean, myths and taboos and, social and cultural norms, even things like patriarchy play such an important role. Women will eat last in the house because that's just how it is, which means that they will have less of food, which means they'll have only the leftovers. And how do we expect these women to be healthy, right? So these are things that I think it needs to be brought out. And like Monalisa said, this will take years to change. Not just women, like entire families need to be educated about it.
Absolutely.
And need to be told. And it's not that media helps, right? Media continues to propagate the same gender norms that we have been living with. Like all your advertisements continue to do the same thing. So it's an uphill battle, but I think we do have wins.
So you have to be at it. There is no other choice. I think any change that you have to push for, small nudges is the way to go. And I am reading reports that, progress that you have made or initiative like yours have made has taken a beating this last 1.5 years or so, only because of the pandemic. I mean, I should not say only because of the pandemic, because pandemic has been the biggest disruptor for us in the recent years or recent days. How have you coped with the challenges this pandemic has thrown at us?
So definitely many of the programs have suffered. There is no, I think, there is no other thought to this. But then I also feel at the same time that the development sector is very resilient, and with its fighting attitude, it are very adaptive. So we have what we call as these sakhis on the ground, which are, women trained in our health programs, in our Enrich program, in our digital literacy program. So through them, we quickly moved on to our digital platforms. They were connected to us through various WhatsApp groups. And, through that, we started to, have what is happening, because, it is a time where very limited personal interaction is possible. But then they are there in the communities, and they were able to convey to us that what is the need on the ground. There was, lot of information, not only on COVID, but also on other things like on maternal and child health. If someone is COVID positive, can she breastfeed? things like that. There was not enough information reaching out to them. So we quickly started making small animated bite-sized videos, like 1 minute's video giving you information, and we started sending it out in our WhatsApp groups. We also made sure that we continue our program on menstrual health and sexual and reproductive health rights and awareness via this network, because that's one way. But at the same time, we understand that not everyone have access to a smartphone, and for that we started the IVR call system. So it's an interactive voice responsive system. People can call, ask questions. If they have some grievance, we'll try to point them to a right direction. So that has been, and because with the women in the community, and a lot of our programs are being run very locally. For example, access to sanitary pads, that affected a lot. But we had programs which were run by the women in the community, so they were able to deploy. We had a nutritional program in the community, and because the women were in the community, they were provided all the safety kits, and they were able to deploy these programs. And just like to add one more thing, and how digital literacy is so much important at this moment of digital divide. And I think that with the French Institute India, they have invited us to start a digital literacy program through its Jaipur Annex for a group of marginalized women over there as well. So yeah, bringing out the importance of digital literacy at the moment.
I was just thinking, India is such a jugaad country, right? Smartphones are not there, no problem. We will find another solution. We'll go the IVR way. Okay, people are not very literate, no problem. We will create small videos where they have to just listen to it and watch it. And in so many ways, the digital media is so easily understandable, accessible. At the same time, the infrastructure is so sad that we have to go again and again to try and help and see what alternate methods can be used, right? And Shruthi, I also read about simple, impactful solutions you have come up with, to solve a lot of these challenges. Can you share some of those with us, please?
Yeah. So we use technology very extensively at FMCH as well. We during the pandemic, we rolled out an app called as a Nutri app, which helps frontline workers counsel the mothers even during the lockdown. So it is meant to do counseling face to face. However, during the lockdown, we, again, like you said, this whole jugaad thing, we did it on the phone. Some of our frontline workers, very similar to what Monalisa was saying, after the same community, which makes, although there's a lockdown outside, I think just working within the community makes it easier. So they were still able to go, and we were in touch with our frontline workers. It's a decision tree app. One of the challenges in India with respect to counseling is the quality of the frontline worker, especially in the first 1,000 days. The kind of information that goes out in the first month during pregnancy, where the mother needs to know about antenatal checkup and what she should be eating, versus what goes out in the 9th month, versus what goes out once the child is born, once the child is 6 months, everything is different. Add to that the diversity of the country, right? So it becomes very, very complex. Especially in a place like Mumbai, where in one lane you will have migrants from UP, another one from Tamil Nadu, another one from Andhra. So the frontline worker, there are so many variables that she needs to have. So we're thinking, okay, how do we support her best at this point? And that's when we developed this app, and it's been fantastic. Like, we've seen mothers we've been like the first point of contact for mothers during the lockdown. In terms of support, what do I feed my child? How do I get access to take-home ration? We've also been coordinating constantly with the government systems, because we realize we are not going to be there forever. So how do we make this sustainable? So the Anganwadi, we work with the Anganwadi and the Asha very closely to make sure that they're able to provide the services once we move up. So that's what we have been sort of working at. I think the other bit that is extremely sort of at the heart of everything that we do is data. All this data that is being collected, we have a dashboard that is used to analyze. That we also share all of this data with the local governments to tell them that, listen, at this houses you have particularly high-risk families. So is there something that we can do about it? In an area, you'll probably have 10% high-risk families. And I think that is what you need to focus on to make sure that the maternal and child health indicators improve. So it's really about cracking those few data points and looking at it from a very scientific perspective.
Wow. There are so many parallels one can draw in how things happen in the corporate world and how things are happening in the non-corporate world. Both the places, the most important fact is data. I mean, if you recollect, Narayan Murthy always used to say, In God we trust. Rest
Everyone
of
else gets data to the table.
Yes. And that is what I'm hearing you say as well, saying that you want to make improvements, get your data right, and then we can make progress and make improvements. Listening to both of you, I'm getting goosebumps saying the kind of impact you people are making. I'm sure there are some excellent stories that you can share on how you changed somebody's life. While, yeah, you are impacting hundreds and thousands of lives, but is there a story that is stuck with you which said that, yeah, this was something I'm very proud of? Or even I'm very happy that, this is the kind of impact, the work that I have done, and hence I want to share.
Yeah, so there is one story whenever I narrate, I always get emotional and it warms my heart so much. So this is a story of Radha, and Radha is a disabled woman, and unfortunately she had lost a newborn baby 2 years back. Radha got enrolled in one of our digital program, in our antenatal program, which we implemented in partnership with another organization. So basically, because she was high risk, we ensure that with the support of ASHA and A&M, because we have localized health leaders, the first step was to make sure that all her antenatal checkups are done. And then for high risk, it's multiple, antenatal checkup needs to be done. But in addition to that, what was most effective for her was that she started getting these calls, which we were sending, which will help her to know at every week what is happening with her, what is happening with her baby, how she needs to take care of herself better, how she needs to be better prepared. And this one, she was not only listening herself, she was also listening, and the husband was also listening. So both Radha and Sumit both were listening, and on their mother-in-law's phone. So it became like a family listening to this call. These are called Amitra calls by Arman, another organization. And because they knew that she is high risk and she needs to be admitted in the hospital before her due date, just near to her due date, they made sure they did that. They had their fears and all, but they took all the possible steps. And thankfully now Radha is a mother to a beautiful girl. Everything is, well with the family. And, when she has narrated to me about, how she felt, she told that, Didi, एक दोस्त मुझे कॉल करके बोल रही थी और आपकी जो सखी थी मुझे रोज आके इसके बारे में बताती थी. So in English, she felt as if there is a friend and a community network supporting her. So it really warms my heart just seeing the picture of a baby on my WhatsApp, and and then it's like a ripple effect. Now the family knows the value of these, keeping in constant touch, listening to this call, and they are now sending these messages around the community that you must listen to these calls. You shouldn't drop the call when you get this call, because these are really important. So they have now become the messenger of these programs in the community, creating a very ripple effect. So yeah.
Wow, such beautiful story. Thank you for sharing, Monalisa. And these people, I'm sure they will influence so many more young mothers or families. And especially in Indian household, mother-in-law is such a strong figure. And if the mother-in-law has bought into this entire thing, she is going to definitely make sure there are 10 other mother-in-laws, if not more. They also listen to this and accept, and the change will happen.
Yes.
Shruthi, I want to hear your impactful story.
I think as Monalisa started off, right, there are just so many stories of impact, and our website is always filled with before-after pictures. But I think for me personally, the most inspiring part is really our field workers, our frontline workers. I'm always so inspired by them. So all our frontline workers are women from the same communities that we work in. Especially, I want to speak about two things that really stand out to me. One is their leadership and their journey. So they join us sometimes, as a lot of the communities that we work in are Muslim communities, which means that most times this is the first time they've gone out, and families are reluctant to send them out to work, right? Okay. For them to come out and take charge of their lives, right? The first earning that goes to them, it is beautiful to see the kind of empowerment that they feel. And, after 2 years, they come back and say, ma'am, मैं अभी आगे पढ़ना चाहती हूँ. I want to study. I want to do a master's in social work. So bachelor's in social work. So they want to finish their 10th and 12th standards. Right? For me, that is so inspiring. The other thing that and most recently, which is super tangible, is that inspired me is, the last year, as I told you, we rolled out the app. These are all women who probably didn't do WhatsApp calls before the pandemic, right? And once we rolled out the app, they are doing a screen share on Zoom and telling me, ma'am, this app is not working and this is exactly what is wrong. Can you tell me how to fix this, right? And I'm just mind blown at the if you give people the opportunity, the chance to, and the right tools, people can do wonders, right? I'm amazed at the potential, and it always inspires me to see what the frontline staff can do.
Wow. Look at the ripple effect. No, you started with nutrition for child and mother. And where you have moved now, along with the original plan, is to empower women and also inspire and make them aspire to become big. Wow, such wonderful jobs. Along with this heartwarming stories, most of us also struggle with the frustrations when things don't go well. I mean, it's part of every job. There are some aha moments, there are success, there are sadness, and there are frustrations. What is that one thing which frustrates you and you kind of want to shake somebody and say, can't you get it? Or I wish this thing was not there and I could have done much better. Anything. Shruti, maybe you should go ahead first.
I have a whole list of this, but I'm going to keep this one short, right? So, I'll tell you what, right? During this pandemic, I was talking to my managers and to the field staff, and I was asking them, like, how are you guys doing just emotionally, etc., and how is our community doing? Someone said something that really stayed with me. They said, this doesn't make a difference to the community, right? The second wave of the pandemic doesn't make a difference to the community. And I was like, what do you mean? They said, this is there every day, right? And I was amazed at that. Like, imagine, the kind of, and for context to those who don't know, we went through a very bad second wave. I think all of us in India know what the second wave was. I think everyone knows at least one person who passed away in the family or friend circle. It was horrible. Like, no beds, government giving wrong data, no oxygen, like just a complete collapse of the infrastructure. And we felt it because we have always had access to an Apollo or a Fortis or a private hospital.
Yeah.
But for the poor in India, this is there every day, right? Two mothers give birth on one hospital bed. It is not any different, right? And that really stayed with me. So I think the one thing that really frustrates me is no matter what we do, I think without political will, without all of us coming together and really making a change, we could all do things and the needle will move by one small inch. But to make that big shift, I think we really need to come together as a community. We need to come together and multiple players, right? Not just NGOs, government, corporate, donors. Everyone needs to come together to make that big shift. And I don't know what that will take.
I think the second wave, especially that hit India, became an eye-opener while everybody knew about it, but they really didn't acknowledge it in any way. I hope that things will change for the better after acknowledging and understanding the real pain and challenges of a common person in India. It's really sad, but then, I don't want to dwell much on that because I'm looking at moving forward. Anyways, Monalisa, you have anything similar to share?
I think, Shruti has, talked about the elephant in the room, but there is one just quick point is I really get frustrated when we receive support for short-term programs. And, you are asked to change attitude, behavior, practices in the communities in that 3 months. This is just, you can just create content what is relevant for them by the 3 months and have one set of workshop, and you cannot expect us to change. The entire community will change in this 3 months. So long-term sustainable program. So if with the government, with the donor, with various foundation, NGOs all need to, the NGOs definitely want to run longer term programs, but what we are sometimes given are very short-term programs, which I just feel just touches the surface, and there is a lot to be done beneath. So that's one thing that frustrates me so much, and a whole lot of focus on very tangible ki product de do, and you think that the problem is solved. Awareness are difficult, behavior change are difficult. We need more support in that area. So that's
very rightly said. Do you also tie up with the other students or interns who are interested to support so that these programs can be spread wide across much easily, or is that something which is frowned upon by the community people?
I think definitely we do have, intern. I mean, I started my journey as a fellow I was a Youth for India fellow, which is run by State Bank of India as a CSR initiative. So, and then I think, definitely for all the programs, interns, students are welcomed. I think one thing I would say that I think what I did mistake, I thought that I knew everything and I'm going in the community to teach people. No, you go in the community and you learn so much, you receive much more than what you can contribute. So go with that attitude of, learning, and it will be a wonderful journey of learning. And most of our programs invite people to support us in these programs.
Okay, great. That will bring a lot more understanding of what are the challenges in the grassroots.
Yes.
Shruthi, you operate from Mumbai.
Right. And because we are remote right now, and this is again, it's a very subtle pitch to all our listeners. If anybody would like to volunteer or intern with us, we would love to have people on board. I think different people get different ideas, which helps us evolve our programs. Apart from them learning, I think we also get to learn a lot when we have different ideas come in. And like I said, we can't solve this alone. We need more people.
Yes.
So join us, start off maybe as an intern and see you'll fall in love with this space. It's a great problem to solve.
Okay. So this has become a nice pitch for you as well. Let's hope that there are our listeners who get motivated to reach out to you. I'm sure once the details are published on the websites of the podcast, they can happily reach out to you, since you've kept an open offer for all the interns to reach out. That's nice. Any insights or any other things that you would like to share as key message for our listeners today?
One thing that I would like to say, irrespective of where you are and what you do, you can be a part of this change. And I think it starts with realizing why it is important to support women's health. In your own family, identify where women's health is not being supported. If you're privileged enough to have domestic help and security people who are working with you, start from there. And I think another thing is donate. Like, donate to a cause that's close to your heart. It will really, really help. This is the time when Indian civil society needs help most. So definitely, and something that a mentor once told me, right? Give till it hurts. And I keep telling everybody that, like, really give till it hurts. This is when we all need to come together. We need to make sure that things get better. We cannot afford another second wave sort of a situation in India.
I think whatever you can, one can help. However you can, one can help.
Absolutely.
Just focus on what you can do. And it's not always money. There are so many different ways one can actually support each other to uplift another human being.
100%. Make connections, give time, give money, whatever it is, but give till it hurts.
Thank you so much, Shruthi, for sharing that. Monalisa?
Yeah, I think just picking up from where Shruthi has mentioned, so I think with this current COVID, the situation in rural India is really bad. I mean, it's not getting enough of data coming out from rural India, so we don't know what's happening. At least the people outside don't know what's happening. But we know in Northeast the cases have risen. In various parts, there are no testing facilities. So it's the time that we donate in kind, in money, but we also advocate. We advocate that this is a very grim reminder. I don't know how many times we need reminder, but the health system in these rural, in urban, there is no infrastructure, there are no doctors. Like, we were doing teleconsultation and the doctor was asking ki bukhar hai to kitna temperature hai, kya pata, there is no temperature, there is no thermometer available. So this basic, like, we're talking about oxygen and beds, this basic oximeter, thermometers, which are very essential, are not there. So this is the time everyone who are privileged, just donate. And the people over there need all of us at the moment. So it's time, just look around, whichever, there are many incredible organizations like CIE, like FMC is doing incredible work on the ground. Just support them as best as you can.
Thank you, Monalisa. And this is such a beautiful reminder for all of us, saying that everybody needs somebody, whether you are in the city, whether you are in the village, whether you are educated, whether you are uneducated. Health is of primary importance, and that too of maternal health, because she is, end of the day, supporting the next generation. And so ensuring that her health is taken care of, she is fed well, she is looked after well, is such an important thing. Also, with the coronavirus pandemic, make sure that you are able to contribute in whatever way you can. Thank you so much, Monalisa and Shruthi, for being our guests today. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you, Sachi. It was lovely speaking with you.
Thank you for listening in. For this episode, we would like to thank our two guests, Monalisa Padhee and Shruthi Iyer. Sanjana Sarkar, Director, French Institute in India from Jaipur. The French Embassy, the French Institute, and the Alliance Francaise Network in India for producing the show. Our special thanks to Hemant Sarang and his team for their advice and technical support. Please do subscribe and review the show, available on various podcasting platforms and on the website afindia.org/podcast. Listen in to the voices that are often invisible but powerful enough to clear the haze.